Welcome to I Am Discipling, a podcast to empower you, encourage you, and equip you in the area of discipleship. I'm your host, Isaac Abel, founder of I Am Ministries. Now be sure to like, subscribe, and share I Am Discipling. Welcome back, everyone. Today's podcast is definitely empowering, encouraging, and it will equip you for sure. But before we get started, let's give a shout out to Melissa Kubecki. She not only has a servant's heart, but she is a faithful listener and an encourager herself. Melissa, thank you for always tuning in and for all that you do for others. Well, before we get started, I want to share an applicable story, and this story is only 3 days old, as in it just took place. That's right, it just happened. It is fresh off the line. This past Saturday, my wife and I decided to take a pontoon boat out with some friends. In total, there was 10 of us. Now, all week long, I had been looking out at the weather because it had been a wet week, and it was forecasted that it was going to rain on Saturday. However, on the day of, the skies really cleared up and we had a nice window to go enjoy some time out on a local sandbar. Well, we did just that. We took the boat out, had a great time, chilled in the water. Someone sat on a flounder, another story for another day. All in all, it was a great time and great laughs. But then there came a time when the sky started to get a little dark and I began looking at the forecast. It was absolutely clear that it was going to rain and that rain was on its way. But as I kept a close eye on it, for about, the next 45 minutes, I suspected it was going to miss us and that we would be completely fine, that it was going to go around us. To the point that others on the boat were asking me, they're like, hey, it's getting a little dark over there. What do you think? And what am I saying? Yeah, it's going to go by us. No big deal. We'll be fine. It's going to miss us. Men, hear me on this, okay? My wife eventually says, that doesn't look good. We should probably pull anchor. You know what, honey? You're absolutely right. Let's do exactly what it is that you said because we need to pull the anchor. You have wisdom, and I'm going to listen to that. So we pulled the anchor, began to head in, but we have about 15 miles to go until we can actually dock up, as in our final destination is 15 miles away. As we get going and within minutes, we notice that we are literally racing the storm. By the way, when we pulled anchor, we heard over the radio there's a severe thunderstorm watch, and it was in effect. Okay, so we're racing the storm. We can see the rain wall behind us, and everyone is laughing. Excitement fills the boat, and I'm yelling out, we can do this. We will beat the storm. Let's go. And great time. You can only imagine. It's a great time. You literally can see the rain wall behind us as we're racing the storm to get to the dock, to get to some dry land. Now, mind you, I'm only going about 25 miles an hour because, well, I'm on a pontoon boat. I'm also being considerate of everyone on the boat, and I want to make sure that everybody stays alive, that we are safe as possible because, well, that's my job. I'm the one driving this boat. So there's also a time, though, when two other boats who are also racing the storm, they seem to come out of the storm, but they're going about 50 miles an hour. At this point, I'm trying not to hit their wake because we're on a pontoon boat. Some in the boat are actually like, come on, we have to win. We must be first. I'm over here getting all spiritual, saying things such as, well, the Bible says that the last shall be first. Come on, somebody. You got to throw it out there, right? You got to have a sense of humor, especially in this mess. But I really believed that we were going to beat the storm. So we took a turn to the right as we needed to in order to get to our final destination. But now the situation is looking, a little suspect. First, we are racing the storm and it's behind us. And now it seems we are headed towards the storm and we might not make it around. Let me tell you this. At one point, my nautical bearings, they were based on landmarks that were around us. They were based on naval ships that were around us, on the shoreline that was around us. But then this happens. We ran right into the storm. Suddenly, this severe thunderstorm, it caught us. Wind came in hard, rain came in sideways. It felt like many bullets piercing us. Lightning strikes are occurring, thunders are rolling, and visibility is absolutely gone. That is right. I can now only see maybe 20 yards ahead of us. This is not looking good. This storm is brutal. Everyone is getting soaked. Some are laughing, some are focused. We even have people who are interceding, calling heaven down on our behalf, and I'm worried. Not so much because of the storm, but more so on other boaters who are out and about who may not have the proper training on what to do. If they're just out there enjoying in their boat without proper training, perhaps they can just come fly right up to us and smack us. You best believe I prayed a very quick, soft prayer saying, Lord, get us through this, get us through it safely. I then placed my visor down to avoid some of the rain on my face, causing me not to be able to see. And so it's at this point I go ahead and I fix my visor because the rain is coming in. I can barely see. So I tilt the visor a little bit just so I can see what it is that I had been seeing. But here's the problem. I can no longer be dependent upon landmarks, the naval ships, and the shoreline, but rather I have to be dependent upon what I have heard and what I have seen. Past tense, everybody. You see, when Kelly and I went through our boat licensing, we were taught how to use the nautical GPS, and when in doubt, slow down. So here's the point. As a disciple, there may come times when you need to be dependent not on what you see, but on what you have seen and what you have heard. Past tense. And so now, before we get started on the teaching, let's take a quick listen to some audio that was taken during the storm. I want you guys to catch a vivid image of what it is that we went through, what it is that we endured. So take a very quick listen to this.
Oh yeah, they said let's go out on the boat. It's gonna be a beautiful day. Beautiful day. Oh yeah, what an amazing day.
Now, this video has been watched over 2,000 times and I laugh every time. However, hear my heart on this. I am glad we are all safe. I am super glad that Jesus heard my prayer saying, Lord, get us out of this storm safely, because he heard it. He answered it. However, now I can't help but laugh because, well, there was just so much going on in that video. Now, let's go ahead and shift. The title of today's episode is Disciples Remember. I'm going to say that again. Disciples Remember. And this episode will be derived out of Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 through 26. Let me get started by saying this. What we endured on Saturday is so applicable to this teaching because verse 23 and 24, they show us that Jesus, he got into a boat and his disciples did the same thing. They followed him into the boat. They accompanied him into the boat. However, Jesus chooses to go to sleep, and suddenly a furious storm shows up, causing waves to sweep over the boat. We may not have had waves sweeping over, but that severe rain did sweep across us for what seemed like forever. Maybe 10 minutes at minimum, but I would say it seemed forever. And so in the story, there comes a time when the disciples have had enough of the storm. They are freaking out, they're panicking, they're hyperventilating. Let me just put it this way. Perhaps they knew a little something about Noah's flood. Okay, if you know anything about Noah's flood, you're probably going to panic. So they make the decision and they take action. What is it that they chose to do? They woke Jesus up. And this is what they say. They say, Lord, save us. This word save in the Greek is the word sozo, and it means to save, heal, and deliver. Properly and in context of this verse, the disciples are saying, Lord, deliver us out of danger and into safety. It's very familiar to my prayer, although mine was a little subtle and a little soft, very similar. See, but they go on to say, we're going to drown. So they say, Lord, save us. We're going to drown, as in we are going to perish. We are going to be cut off entirely. Jesus then replies in verse 26, and what does he say? You of little faith, why are you so afraid? You see, in the Greek, he is saying, why are you so delos? Why are you losing your moral fortitude? The fortitude needed to follow him. It is referencing to an excessive dreaded fear, causing them to be faint-hearted and falling short of following him. But he did not just say, why are you so afraid? What else did he say? He also said, you of little faith. Little faith in the Greek is ilogopistos, and it occurs 5 times in the New Testament. And each time, watch this, Jesus is rebuking the problem of failing to hear his voice. It describes someone dull to hearing the Lord's voice or disinterested in walking intimately with him. You see, the problem is not that they lacked faith, as we may see it to be. They failed to hear what he had been saying. You of little faith. I'll say it again. They failed to hear what he had been saying. Up to this point, he has been teaching time and time again, showing them with miraculous signs and wonders. And here they are losing their moral fortitude. Here they are not remembering what he had been saying. Past tense. For example, as already mentioned, you of little faith occurs 5 times in the New Testament, and in Matthew chapter 16, the disciples had been discussing among themselves a topic they did not understand when Jesus spoke about the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. See, Jesus overhears them saying this, "Is it because we didn't bring any bread?" And it's at this point in verse 8 that Jesus speaks up and he says to them, "You of little faith, why are you talking about not having any bread?" He goes on to say, "Do you not remember?" I'll say that again. You of little faith, why are you talking about not having any bread? And he went on to say, do you not remember? Do you not remember the 5 loaves of bread that fed the thousands, 5,000? I'm paraphrasing here, but do you not remember when the bread was multiplied and thousands were fed? Scripture goes on to tell us that they had so much bread that many baskets were gathered full of bread after everyone had already feasted, after everyone had already eaten. This is the same scenario. You of little faith, do you not remember what you have heard? Do you not remember what you have seen? The disciples are in a boat and suddenly a furious storm appears, and it is as if they are about to be destroyed. Fear comes over them and they wake Jesus and are screaming out loud, "Lord, save us, deliver us from destruction, O you of little faith." The story goes on to tell us that Jesus got up, he rebuked the winds and the waves, and it became calm. Let me say this. There are going to be times in your lives when a suddenly storm will appear. You will have both winds and waves coming against you, but don't panic. Remember what it is that Jesus has shown you. Remember what it is that Jesus has said to you. Remember the days of old. He did not let you perish then, and he will not let you perish now. The winds and waves will cease. The storm will calm. Don't panic. I'm telling you, don't panic. Don't lose your moral fortitude. Don't fall short in following Christ because of a suddenly storm. Don't be dull. If you walk away with anything, know this. Don't be dull in hearing the Lord's voice. When he says, you of little faith, he's talking in the context of hearing his voice, not just in the moment, but what it is that he has been saying. So I'm telling you, don't be dull in hearing the Lord's voice. So be encouraged that he sees you. He's with you and in your boat. And if you have a storm brewing in the distance, or if you are in a storm, let me say this to you. The storm has nothing on you. This too shall pass. And lastly, remember this. As a disciple, there may come a time when you need to be dependent not on what you see, but on what you have seen and what you have heard. Past tense. Thank you for joining us for this episode in your I Am Discipling podcast, where we desire to empower you, encourage you, and equip you in the area of discipleship. Now take a brief moment to subscribe and share the podcast.